Ladies, we have to take accountability for our actions. When it comes to motherhood or raising our kids, when it comes to these jobs, when it comes to men and relationships more specifically, we have to start taking accountability for the parts that we play in the demise of these relationships, or the way these relationships turn out, especially when it comes to how we may perceive a situation, or how a situation may actually end up turning out when it comes to how somebody may end up treating us. And I'm the rhetoric that I'm seeing, out here in these internet streets, or the conversations even sometimes that I'm having with, people, that I grew up with, or people that I've been around. It's always a blame game. It's always other people's fault, why something, didn't happen, or why something did happen. It's always the blame. It's the, baby daddy when it comes to, the kids. He's always the problem when it comes to raising the children. When it comes to these relationship with these men, right? They're always the liars. They're always the manipulators. They're always the abusers. Like, it's always this blame game. You can't seem to move on in your life or do anything because your mama didn't do this, or your daddy wasn't there, and all these types of things where we can't seem to accept responsibility or take responsibility over our lives. And I've been seeing a lot of this. Obviously, have been seeing a lot of this, but it is nothing new. But more specifically with this Cassie and Diddy trial. Now, if anybody has been watching, and I'm sure, and when I say watching it, not actually watching the trial because it's not being broadcasted, but watching, like, the reporters, the, news posts, blogs, or whatever, and everything that's on social media, right? So, like, if you've been keeping up with it at any point, you'll know that Cassie took a stand last week. She was on the stand for 4 days. And what I want to touch on, not so much of what she endured during the relationship, because, there's no doubt, and if I'm sure you all have seen the video, it came out, I want to say last year, where there was some physical abuse in a hotel, where clearly, if you got eyes, you can see that, Diddy's dragging her, stumping her, and all of that other stuff. So there definitely was some type of physical abuse in that relationship. Obviously a lot more that may not be on camera, but then it's a lot of other things that happen in their relationship that, is up for debate. It's subjective or debatable or whatever. And I think that's what I want to touch on, and how it all kind of got to that point. So before all of this happened, and the reason why I started out with the accountability is because I really want to get to a point of us as women, okay, that we start taking proactive action instead of reactive action. We are mothers raising daughters. We are daughters ourselves. We may, even be some type of leader to other young girls that may be watching that we might not be aware of. We have nieces, or we might have, sisters or younger siblings, whatever it is. I just don't want this to be a continuous cycle where it's always the blame game and it's always somebody else's fault when you voluntarily put yourself into a situation. So if we rewind time, right, to when us all started, before all of this, before Cassie even got into a relationship with Diddy, right? So initially, now this is, according to sources that I've been seeing around, again, in these internet streets, and I'm trying to piece it together and based off of some stuff that she said on the stand. But so she was about around 19 years old, right? It's a guy by the name of, Ryan Leslie, that discovered her at like this New York nightclub. So she was like, I think she might have been like modeling a little bit, she was like an aspiring artist or whatever, and he discovered her at the nightclub. And so from there, they went on to, like, collaborate, and it seemed like a lot of this happened in a short period of time, because she would have been around 19 when he first met her. They did a little collaboration. The song Me and You had already come out. Diddy heard the song. I think he heard it in a nightclub. And he was asking around like, who is this artist, and come to find out he knew Ryan. And he found out, oh, that's Ryan's artist. So Ryan was Cassie's producer. So I guess they, end up coming together at some point. I guess Diddy introduced Ryan, Leslie, and Cassie to his record label, to Bad Boy Records. And so from there, there's obviously a lot of other stuff that happens, in the back end or whatever, but just to kind of like compress everything, Cassie is then signed to Bad Boy while Ryan is still her producer. And, she signs on like this 10 album deal. And so I think it was during that time that she was signed to Bad Boy Records that she officially like released the album Cassie with the Me and You song on it or whatever. So, she was that was her song. That's what put her on the map. And so it was determined that she was in a relationship with Ryan Leslie as well. So again, she's 19 years old roughly. Now, after she signed to the record label with Diddy, it's kind of fuzzy as to when they started having interest in each other. Now, I want to say when she took the stand, she stated it wasn't until her 21st birthday when he kissed her. Now, I don't know again if there was some type of interest before then, because keep in mind, she was, signed to his record label. So they were doing, spending a lot of time together. And so there could have already been some type of attraction. She's around, I'm sure within his lifestyle and what he has going on a, at least if not a day to day, a lot of what he has going on in his life, because they were, definitely seen around, because she was like his artist. And so, but again, according to her, it wasn't really apparent to her until he kissed her on her 21st birthday. And then she goes to say, she was kind of a little confused, but like, it's almost like she, kind of had interest in him, but, she had a boyfriend at the time. And so she just really didn't know where to go with her feelings. But then shortly after, there's like this intimate situation that happens between them. And that was like the start of it. So again, she was still with Ryan. But then, according to, what I know is that they were together for like a few years. So it would have been around that time that she was still with him and when all of this started with Diddy. Now, this is what I want to get to here. My thought process is, she's this young girl, she's an artist, and I do want to touch on, because I see a lot of people have this rhetoric or mindset that, oh, she was groomed. Because keep in mind, when she was around 19, when she met Ryan, he was like 29, but Diddy was like 36 or 37 years old. And so she went from, dating this 29-year-old roughly to then dating Diddy, who was almost 40. And so, people are saying, oh, she was groomed, and, oh, she's just so young, he was so old. Like, she was grown, okay? She was considered an adult at that time. Homegirl was out here in New York nightclubs, okay, doing her thing when Ryan met her. So don't try to act like, she was just some little prissy little girl that was, sitting at the front row of the church or something like that or whatever. And even then, listen, them pastor kids be the worst. So, but she wasn't that girl. I'm not saying that she was some bad girl, that she was just out there, just loose and all type of stuff. I don't know what she was doing. But the matter of fact is, I don't see this as no grooming situation. I see this as a young girl, who was hungry for success, who was, just trying to make it or whatever. And at the end of the day, she might not have been using her best discretion. But I don't think that she was groomed. When I look back and look at myself when I was her age, I was definitely doing my thing, honey. Okay. And, and we've all been, I'm sure a lot of us have been in situations where we did not make the best of choices. Okay. So this is not to say like, oh, she did something that, it's so bad to the point, well, outside of everything else that happened, like as far as the freak offs and all that stuff like that. But initially, when this all started, a lot of young girls probably would have been making the same decision, because Again, she's hungry for success. She's with this prominent individual. I'm sure she's blinded by, the glamour and the jewelry and the cars and the money that he's spending. And they say he's a little charismatic and probably likes to spend a little money and make sure his women is straight and look good. Whatever the case may be, she was most likely blinded by all of that when she decided to pursue him. And so apparently things must have kicked off, pretty hard, because I want to say that maybe when she was almost like 22, she was either 22 or something like that when she first got introduced to doing the freak offs. And then it just kind of went on from there. Of course, drugs were involved. And then, the physical abuse, according to what she's saying. And, all of this stuff happened after the fact. Now you getting into a situation and now you're trying to figure out how do you get out when you probably shouldn't have never got into it from the beginning. Now to say, did she, because obviously her mother was involved somehow, and I haven't even checked up on the case, but apparently her mama has taken a stand. And so I would assume that her mom was involved at some point. It's not like some young girl who had no guidance, was mama wasn't there, daddy in jail, or some crazy stuff or whatever. But again, I don't really know her full personal situation, but this is a prime example. It's like, of course 10 11 years she dealt with that, and she was able to get out of the situation. But now it's like this whole it's like this message that's being put out there that's just like, oh, I was involved in domestic violence, which it clearly looks like that was the case based on the video. But again, a lot of things is up for debate because nobody was there. We do have that one video in a hotel, but it was just like, she was just saying, she was put into situations of victimized, but nobody didn't force her. Nobody didn't make her stay there, and I think that, because the thing is, she got out in 2018. I don't know what caused you to leave at that time, and, I don't know, because she talked about being afraid to leave before because he would, dangle the freak off videos over her head. Like, if you leave, I'm going to put these videos out, all this other stuff, and, so it again, it's a lot of things that's subjective or up for debate because it's, I'm getting pieces of information from different sources and stuff like that. But the bottom line is we have to do better as women. What I can't stand is for, and I've even seen this out when I've been out hanging out and stuff like that, somebody out getting sloppy drunk. Why are you out in public getting drunk where anything can happen to you? If you know that you're not in the comfort of your own home and you out in public, why are you can't even walk straight? I remember being out and I was, out with my brothers and stuff like that, and we was hanging out, and I mean, this guy was drunk. I mean, he was like flopping all over the place. I was just like, dang, that's crazy. Because like, how you getting home? Like, I hope you're not driving. Even if you Uber, like, you know what I'm saying? You don't know who could be, taking you where you need to go. Like, it's just so much that can happen to you. Like, why would you put yourself in that situation? You want to be proactive. Anytime I went out and I was having drinks, oh, there's a limit. There's a limit. I'm not doing it. I'm not going everywhere. There's certain places, certain things. It's like, that you shouldn't even be in that type of environment. Nobody's not stupid. You know what I'm saying? Like, most people have some level of conscience, and especially as women, we have intuition. There's certain things where even if you don't actually know all the details, somewhat of like, this don't feel right. This situation look like it's about to go left. It's a reason we have a brain. But a lot of women are so caught up on or blinded by the glamour. They want to get flued out. They want the purses and the bags and the shoes and the jewelry, and they want the lifestyle. They want to be famous too. And so they make poor choices, but then when something happens to them, it's always somebody else's fault. And I'm not saying that it's ever okay for someone to be victimized or to be taken advantage of, even if they are in that situation. But what do you tell your daughters? So basically you're going to okay your daughter to go out and get drunk and do all of those things and put herself in a victimizing situation. And that's the thing that really, really, gets me is the fact that a lot of these women are raising girls and children, and it's women in their 30s that's doing this same stuff. So, her being young doing it is not really an issue, because there's a lot of older women who are doing the same thing. We have to do better, women. I mean, it just reminds me of, you deciding that, you're gonna go out to the club. You're gonna meet a guy, right? You meet a guy, and he looks good. He's dressed up. Got his jewelry on, all that type of stuff, right? You go home with the guy. You sleep with him. He got AIDS. He give you AIDS. You find out that you have it, and the first thing you say is, it's his fault because he gave it to me. But you not once ever look yourself in the mirror and say, why did I even decide I met this guy, I didn't take the proper precautions, went home with him, had sex with him, used no protection, any of that, and then now that I got something, I'm gonna blame him. You know what I'm saying? Again, no, it's not he doesn't have a right to go around spreading something, especially if he had it. But what if he didn't even know? And you did not protect yourself in that moment. We have to protect ourselves and do whatever we need to do in order to be, again, proactive instead of reactive. It is ridiculous that I'm seeing all of this stuff online where people always want to play this blame game. And like I said, we could talk about all the things now because she's been through so much, and no, she wasn't deserving of that. All the stuff she had to experience and the things that she did. But that was after the fact. So when we're having these conversations with our daughters, our nieces, whoever else is in our life, our younger siblings, our daughters' friends, obviously you need to be having these conversations with your sons too, about protecting themselves and not subjecting themselves to crazy stuff. Because I've even guys that I've grown up with psyched out of their minds. And you be like, dang, what happened to bro? I remember when we was in high school, he was like the best football player. He was popular. We just knew he was going to be something. And now he's crazy and out of his mind, walking down the street talking to himself, and you trying to figure out what happened. And word around is, they hanging out at parties and stuff like that, drinking and smoking with people, and somebody done laced his drink or his weed. And now he can't rewind time. He can't get that back. He can sit up there, and try to blame somebody for whoever did what to him. But at the end of the day, if he could go back in time, I guarantee you he'd be like, dang, I wish I would have, never went out with them dudes. I wish I would have never did this. Just like a lot of dudes who's sitting in prison right now from choices that they made hanging out with certain guys. It's nobody else's fault. You have to be able to take accountability for your own actions. And the point is not to wait until you're knee deep into something and now it's hard for you to get out. What can you do to prevent the situation? I've even had, having conversations with people in my own circle where it's like, they're having to deal with certain issues with their dudes, with cheating or lying and being manipulative or being narcissist or whatever it is. But it's like, what you saw in him from the beginning. He showed you who he was from the beginning. He didn't wait for you to, spend 1, 2, 3 years with you before he showed himself. He showed you himself from the beginning. But you accepted certain things and you stuck around. This is before you fell in love. So that sounds like that's a you problem. And now that you're knee deep, now your excuse is, oh, well, I love him. We have to start doing better. It's just too many situations, too much going on out here. Not enough people, being real with themselves, taking accountability for their actions. And that's why I feel like a lot of these children today are the way that they are, is because they have no proper guidance. The women, and you have a lot of men too, but specifically I'm talking to the ladies. A lot of women are not holding themselves accountable. They're not taking control of them. So I'm just saying, at the end of the day, we have to Really look ourselves in the mirror. When you like literally look yourself in the mirror, what do you see? What do you see when you look yourself in the mirror? You have to be happy with that person that's reflecting. That's just one example, but I think that, because I'm seeing a lot of this is obviously a high profile case, and I'm seeing it, really, really, pop, and I'm seeing in the comments, it's really becoming this big thing. But we really have to do better, ladies. We really have to do better.